Welcome to the final edition of Let's Talk Criterion for the month of May, and our final film to feature is Girlfight. Girlfight is a contemporary drama from the year 2000 and the debut directorial feature from the American director Karyn Kusama. Now, Karyn Kusama graduated from NYU, where she won a Nobel Prize for a student film entitled Sleeping Beauties. She worked as an editor on documentary films and in production on independent film and music videos. And she also worked as a nanny and painting houses. Through her nanny job, she met the filmmaker John Sayles and worked as his assistant for 3 years while he was making the film Lone Star, which of course recently joined the Criterion collection, as well as development of his films Men with Guns and Limbo. Now, while she was working for John Sayles, she continued to write screenplays, and in 1992 Kusama started boxing at Neeson's gym in Brooklyn, training with Hector Roca. She began collecting ideas for her film Girlfight then, but she didn't start writing the screenplay until 2 years later. Karyn Kusama's film is a tough, absorbing, old-fashioned drama about Diana Guzman, played in the film by Michelle Rodriguez. Diana is a young Latino woman who comes from the New York City projects, and she channels her aggression into boxing. Diana finds her way into the ring through a kind of reverse Billy Elliot situation. She stops by the gym to see her brother in training, but he's a wimp who'd rather be studying. So he quits. She persuades the trainer Hector, played in the film by James Torelli, to give her a shot, and she graduates to sensational mixed bouts. Now, Kusama's film Girlfight isn't overtly concerned with political or indeed feminist implications, apart from a few exclamations of disgust coming from the sweat-soaked old-timers. There's no serious agonising about men or women thumping each other in the ring. And it doesn't have the boxing movie's classic preoccupation with the experience of losing, or indeed of growing old as a boxer, perhaps simply because the whole subject is so novel. Now, in some ways, it's more like a film about dancing. When Diana falls in love with Adrian, played in the film by Santiago Douglas, that's the boy she must eventually fight, it looks like an emotionally charged rivalry on the dance floor, a sort of Strictly ballroom with Lonsdale sweatshirts. But in showing a woman in training and preparing for a fight, Kusama defamiliarises boxing as a subject and makes us, the viewer, see afresh its drama of brutality and of vulnerability. Now, of course, it helps in the boxing sequences especially that Kusama herself had already been through some boxing training, and she drew on this experience when she was working with Michelle Rodriguez. Now, Girlfight can almost be evenly divided into two separate halves. The first half of the film deals with Diana's discovery of self through boxing, and the second half focuses on Diana's bumpy romance with Adrian. And it's handled in fairly conventional terms that do not equal the originality of the first half of the film. I would say muscles and marriage can go together is the message Girlfight seems to go out of its way to express. Now, the second half of the film drags somewhat. There's a feeling accentuated by some uneven performances as well. And the film also makes it seem as though female boxing is a wholly original thing. Whereas, if not quite commonplace, neither is it any big news. Now, this may be a cultural development that occurred during the film's incubation period, a period indeed which saw the director, John Sayles, his longtime producers Maggie Renzi and Sarah Green, and the Independent Film Channel come aboard as producers. Girlfight is a compellingly watchable story with a charismatic new find in its starring role of Michelle Rodriguez. Ultimately, it may not be all that it can be, but it's so much more than anyone else outside the creative team that designed it ever imagined. It's an astonishingly adept first film from writer-director Karyn Kusama. Girlfight submerges the viewer in Diana's often despairing environment, one of barking dogs, car alarms, gunning engines, and pounding car stereos, which create a blanket of background sounds, which build to a crescendo, accompanied by an extraordinary score that combines tensely clapping castanets and kinetic, sonorous classical piano. Now, the photography in the film is dark and deliberately grainy, and that might worry some with the amount of grain in the film, but it's provided by cinematographer Patrick Cady, and he reflects Diana's moody disposition. The fight scenes that come later in the film provoke a physical reaction, not an emphatic wince at the impact of a well-landed punch, emphasised with perspective shots that white out his boxing glove makes contact with camera, but a psychological reaction that tenses your whole body because you feel the vehement adrenaline coursing through the girl's veins. Now, the director Kusama initially sought to cast a professional actor to play the part of Diana, but she felt that many of those who auditioned for that part were overly feminized and they were polished, and she decided to cast an untrained actor in the role instead. Now, Michelle Rodriguez, who had worked as a film extra but had never actually auditioned for a speaking role in a film before, attended an open casting call for the lead role. Although Kusama described Rodriguez's audition as a disaster, she won the role because out of the 350 auditionees, Kusama could not find anyone who could come anywhere close to her in physical power. And since Rodriguez was not a boxer, she trained at Gleason's gym 5 to 6 days a week for 4 months in preparation prior to filming, as did Santiago Douglas, who was cast as Adrian. Girlfight was filmed over 24 days in New York City and New Jersey, and the scenes inside the gym where Diana and Tiny train were shot in a warehouse in Jersey City. The initial boxing sequences were shot from a spectator's view outside of the ring, but later sequences were filmed more intimately from inside the ring. 2 days before pre-production on the film was set to begin, the financier backed out, but as I said already, Renzi and her partner John Sayles, an independent filmmaker and Kusama's former mentor, decided to provide funding for the film's entire budget themselves, and the Independent Film Channel later contributed $300,000 towards the budget. Girlfight premiered on January the 22nd in 2000 at the Sundance Film Festival, where it went on to win the festival's Grand Jury Prize and the Directing Award in Dramatic Competition. And of course, following this, Kusama went on to direct Aeon Flux in 2005, Jennifer's Body, the comedy horror from 2009, and the film The Invitation, a horror thriller from 2015. And more recently, she has worked on the mini-series Dead Ringers, which is based on the film by David Cronenberg, and contributed to the Alexandra O'Philippe documentary Lynch Oz, which is distributed through the Criterion collection. And in fact, you can watch our video on Lynch Oz by clicking on the link above. And it's nice to see that her first film, Girlfight, gets a place in the Criterion collection, even though it didn't do terribly well at the US box office. Now, the release comes with the following special features. There's a 4K digital restoration supervised by director Karyn Kusama and director of photography Patrick Cady, with 5.1 surround DTS HD master audio soundtrack. Audio commentary featuring Kusama, new interviews with Kusama, editor Plummy Tucker, and composer Theodore Shapiro, storyboard to film comparison with a commentary from Kusama, a trailer, and as always is a fold-out with an essay written by the author Carmen Maria Machado. And cover art for the Girlfight cover is by Gillian Adele. Capturing the full emotional weight of Diana's journey and the kinetic thrill of bodies in motion, Kusama crafts a singularly uncompromising story of self-realization. Girlfight has a running time of 111 minutes, and it's in a widescreen aspect ratio, that's 185:1, and it comes to the Criterion collection in the US only on Tuesday the 20th of May, a spine number 1219. In our first June edition, we'll be featuring the Terry Gilliam Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which gets its 4K UHD upgrade in the collection. So from me until then, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.